Hello and welcome to MRA's 5-Minute HR Feed, the podcast where you get quick, practical information about a hot topic. In the time it takes to make a cup of coffee, you'll gain insights on hot topics and pressing HR issues. I'm your host, Rebecca Jacobs, and we are so glad you're here. Before we start, here's my usual disclaimer that the podcast is general information only and does not contain any legal advice. Now it's time to dive in. For today's podcast, we're going to be talking about drug testing in light of the increase in legalized recreational marijuana. Now, I work out of our Columbus, Ohio office, and last November, the Ohio voters approved legislation which makes recreational marijuana legal. We are waiting for implementation details on sales and things like that, but if someone happens to have access to marijuana now, they can use it. So this raises a good question. In states where recreational marijuana is legal, what have you changed about your drug testing policy, if anything? Especially thinking about pre-employment testing, where our applicants have to go and get a test. And perhaps that test comes back with a positive drug result for marijuana. So in thinking about whether to make changes to policies, there are three big questions to consider. First, do any of the positions in your company have to have mandatory drug testing because of federal rules or regulations? For example, Department of Transportation requires that certain positions must have certain testing, certain requirements. How about federal contractors and companies which receive federal funds? We're always going to be complying with those. When we have a state legalize recreational marijuana, that state is not able to tell its citizens, hey, you don't have to listen to the federal rules anymore. The federal rules are going to trump. Second question is, what does your state say about drug testing? Now remember, there's a conundrum, which is that a positive test is not necessarily an indication that the person is currently impaired by marijuana. It could be that they had smoked over the weekend, they no longer have it in their system such that they are impaired, but they would have a positive drug test result. So what does your state say about drug testing for marijuana under these circumstances? For example, Ohio is really hands-off and very employer-friendly. Employers absolutely can continue all testing or even establish testing if they want to. Pre-hire, random, reasonable suspicion, post-accident. Illinois is similar. Now, Minnesota is more employee-friendly. Employers can only continue pre-employment and routine physical examination cannabis testing for certain positions, such as safety-sensitive positions, police officers, firefighters, so on and so forth. Check the show notes for links to the various restrictions and the various positions which are allowed to have that cannabis testing. For reasonable suspicion, that's still allowed. So, and of course, when we talk about reasonable suspicion testing, this underscores the key need for managers to be trained on what to spot. If they know what to look for with their employees to see that perhaps there's a suggestion that they might be impaired or that they might be under the influence of cannabis at that moment, then they will know that it is time to send that person for testing. But we need to make sure that our managers have that understanding of what constitutes reasonable suspicion. And it's a good idea to have a second person, objective person, observe and also document their findings that support that reasonable suspicion. Now, the third question, even if your company in your state is legally allowed to test applicants for cannabis, could this have an impact on filling open positions? Have any of your colleagues or companies in your region relaxed or even discontinued cannabis testing? Have they perhaps not done it in the past and have decided not to start? So consider the statistics about marijuana use. Now, assuming that the people being questioned for these surveys are being honest. A 2017 study indicated that approximately 35 million Americans use cannabis on a monthly basis. 2023 Statista Research Department said 17% of American adults smoke marijuana. Half of all adults have said that they've tried marijuana at least once. And over the past 10 years, it's believed that the percentage of people who have tried it has increased, coinciding, of course, with the increase of states who have legalized recreational marijuana. And some employers, like Chipotle and Netflix, don't even do pre-hire testing at all. So all of the links to all of those research and statistics are in the show notes. So in conclusion, we're not recommending that anyone stop testing, and we're not recommending that anyone start. There's so many factors to consider, including maintaining a safe and healthy working environment, which is something we all aspire to have. It's just these are all things that are very important to consider when we're looking at the landscape of marijuana laws in our states. Thank you for listening to MRA's 5-Minute HR Feed. For this episode, be sure to reference the show notes where you can sign up to connect for more podcast updates. If you have questions, you can connect with MRA's hotline team by emailing info.now@mranet.org or calling 866-474-6854. Check out other MRA episodes on your favorite podcast platform, such as MRA's 30-Minute Thrive. And as always, make sure to follow so you don't miss out. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll have another hot HR topic in 2 weeks.